Hear us? Put it on the table. Can you also hear us? You said you're quite like in the back here.
Can y'all hear when she talks into the microphone?
Can you hear me?
No.
Can you hear me now? Put it up here.
That's better.
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning. Okay, are y'all ready to get started? Well, good morning. I know it's been a minute since we've seen each other. And so what we wanted to do was basically kind of recap a little bit where we left off last time. We very much appreciate the presentation that we heard on August 4th regarding Article 16 and oversight. And so what we wanted to do
Green light? Green.
And so what we wanted to do, since when we gave our proposal on Article 16, it was back on March 30th of 2022. So it's obviously now we're in September. So what we wanted to do is kind of go over that article where we were coming from back in March. Obviously, we also know, where if anyone watched the city council meeting last week, so in light with some new things going on within the city as well. So with that, we'll just get started. So here's this is kind of what we're going to be going over this morning, just a recap of negotiations, a little bit of recap of y'all's presentation, going over what the city will be talking about today, a little history of police oversight, the Rice Kinder report. The Rice Kinder report and the NACO 13, which is some resources that we developed our research on, where we believe the future of policing is going, 143 obstacles in which we need y'all's participation in regards to the contract, the unique needs of the city of Austin and our final thoughts. So as kind of briefly touched on, we started negotiations back in March of 2022. I believe our very first meeting was March 9th of 2022. And we presented our proposal on Article 16, as well as proposals on hiring, Article 17 and Article 20, the grievance procedures, all on March 30th, 2022. And of course, we're focusing on Article 16, which is oversight today. But we wanted to just highlight that Article 16 and oversight has been a priority of the city team from the beginning. And so our proposal from March consisted of removing OPO from the contract and making the G-file, the confidential G-file, public. And we also understand the time has passed, and we recently heard your presentation on Article 16 on August 4th. It's really going to mess up my throat.
Yeah, let's see that.
Yeah. We'll make a 10-minute presentation, 45. All right, so, hang on. So when y'all gave y'all presentation, we very much, well, we thought it was great. And the concepts from that presentation are in line with city goals. And so we reviewed the references that you cited, we reviewed that research, we went back and we read that article by Merrick Bob, written back in 2003. And so where APA left off, we wanted to continue moving forward with those concepts, right? And so Merrick Bob's article back in 2003, there's been a lot of research since then that that kind of laid the foundation for. So the final thoughts from the APA presentation, we fully agree with, right? So the final thoughts from the APA presentation ended with a quote from Merrick Bob, right? The most effective form of civilian oversight is that in which the least restrictive means necessary to achieve police accountability is the best approach to the oversight function in the long term. So we are fully in agreement with that. And so what we wanted to do in our presentation today is take those concepts from APA's presentation and just reassert where we were coming from in Article 16 back in March 30th. And so we just kind of to explain it further. And we understand that, the city and the city council, and there's this petition that's coming to the voters in May of 2023. So we don't know where things will end up, but we wanted to just kind of tell you where we started back in March. And so just a little bit of a small history lesson, historical pushes for police oversight. Really what's not on here is, the beginning of police oversight back in the 1920s in LA, where the actual Los Angeles Bar Association established a committee on constitutional rights, but it didn't really have any power because it wasn't tied to a governmental body. In the 30s to the 50s, riots and race relations over police violence in urban areas gave way to strengthen movements in police accountability. And so if you see in DC 1948, that was the nation's first civilian review board established in response to community concerns over policing against African Americans. That CRB was not very effective, and it only actually reviewed 54 cases in its first 16 years of existence. So similarly, 53 in New York City, 58 in Philadelphia, the lack of staffing and funding made those oversight agencies basically ineffective. The next major push came into the 60s, unrest in Detroit, LA, and other cities where unrest arose directly from police abuse against African Americans. And the Federal Coroner Commission created to investigate why these riots were occurring, and the Federal Coroner Commission actually recommended that cities institute these oversight agencies. In '73, Berkeley, California, a group of community organizers successfully campaigned and got the city council to pass an ordinance establishing a police review commission. So this is one of the first times that the city and the community got together and actually gave this agency some authority, some legit jurisdiction, right? This trend kept moving forward. Obviously, going forward into the 90s, that brought its own changes. The media was more prevalent. Nationwide, there was a 41% spike in drug-related arrests, and there was just more of a focus on quality of life policing that led to expansion of practices such as the stop and frisk, right? So racial disparities in that enforcement, as well as expanded media coverage, developed these negative perceptions. So then you'll see in 1991, 1992, the LA riots in 92 will further cause for people to demand more civilian oversight. In 1994, federal policy within the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Agency Act gave the federal government more power to investigate local police departments, largely through federal consent decrees. So, and then of course we jump into 2014, Michael Brown's death in Ferguson, Missouri, protests under Black Lives Matter, increasingly pushed for policing reforms, including oversight. So the Obama administration further oversaw many consent decrees in cities such as New Orleans, Cleveland, Chicago, and Ferguson. In 2016, the DOJ created COPS, the Office of Community-Oriented Policing, which actually funds the NACL 13, which we're going to discuss in terms of best practices for police oversight. 2020, obviously, we had the George Floyd riots, and while the Trump era, there was no further expansion of the Obama administrative consent decrees. existing consent decrees and continued protests have actually expanded civilian oversight despite all that. So our research that we had done largely stems from this Rice-Kinder report that was produced in November 2020. So this article, Who's Policing the Police? A Comparison to Civilian Agencies That Perform Oversight of Policing Texas' 5 Largest Cities. It analyzed the civilian agencies that perform oversight of police in Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, and Fort Worth. So the Kinder Institute used the National Association for Citizen Oversight of Law Enforcement's Best Practices. This is NACOL. Each city's oversight board was analyzed to see how well they fit within those best practices. So real quickly, what is NACOL? NACOL is a nonprofit organization that brings together individuals and agencies working to establish or improve oversight of police officers in the United States. Yet they are also partially funded by COPS as well, the DOJ entity there, to do further studies. And so in this PowerPoint, just kind of to recap real quickly, when we give you a copy, in the notes, all these slides are sourced to either NACOL or the reports that we're citing here. So the mission for NACOL is to create community support for independent civilian oversight entities that seek to make their local law enforcement agencies more transparent, accountable, and responsive to the communities they serve. So these principles, right, it's the closest approximation to best practices. And we use best practices, but what you'll see is also effective practices and the best fit for that specific jurisdiction. And so obviously we're talking about the city of Austin here, right? And so in the Rice-Kinder report, that's what they were looking at. So the NACOL 13 principles, I will just go over them briefly. Independence is number 1. So it refers to the absence of real or perceived influence. This is, according to NACOL, according to Rice-Kinder, according to the current and leading research, independence is the most important factor or principle in regards to police oversight. And it ties into all the others. And Merrick Bob, referring back to APA's presentation, also referred to independence being key in regards to police oversight. Additional principles clearly define an adequate jurisdiction and authority. Whom do they report to? Unfettered access to records and facilities. Access to law enforcement executives and internal affairs staff. Full cooperation with that staff. Sustained stakeholder support. So adequate staffing, adequate funding, and adequate resources. Public reporting and transparency, policy and pattern analysis and recommendations, community outreach, community involvement, confidentiality, anonymity and protection from retaliation, procedural justice and legitimacy. And I think some of these will look familiar to y'all because we have some of these in place. And so what the Rice-Kinder report looked at in regards to Austin specifically, as well as the others, was to see how well they aligned with those best practices and with those principles. And so the Rice-Kinder report, what they did is they kind of morphed their own version of the 13 and kind of tailored it down to 10. So degree of independence, to whom they report, data access, police staff access, public outreach practices, staffing, budget, transparency and reporting practices, legal powers and status, policy analysis, and recommendation. And so the findings generally actually show that Dallas, Austin, and Fort Worth were very, very much in line with those 13 principles, right? And in comparison also to San Antonio and Houston, which kind of suffer from a lack of data access. However, Austin is not at the forefront in various locations, right? So where Austin is on the forefront, data access is only fair. Part of this is the fact that we are a 143 city with a G file, right? So that's confidential. And in addition, OPO has to rely on the police department to get that information. They don't have unfettered access to those documents. Legal status as well, it's only mostly secure as opposed to secure, created by ordinance in some respects, but also relying on the convert agreement and various others. Future of policing. So we believe that this transformation of policing and this push for civilian oversight is one of the biggest civil rights issues of our current time for both the community and police officers in their own safety, right? So the Rice-Kinder report specifically states that agencies that are transparent in their daily work and can successfully discipline offending officers can help bring about greater trust to the police department, fewer racial disparities and violence, and fewer assaults against the police themselves. So what we were proposing to you back in March, and today still, whatever shape and whatever form that comes in, when and if we get an agreement, is that we can create that best model of the future for public safety. And we believe that you're on board with it based on your presentation. It's just a matter of how we get there, right? And so we believe that OPO can be fully independent and out of the contract, obviously with various aspects that will need to be negotiated in regards to the G file and discipline. So, and of course, the city of Austin. Austin has been progressive and at the forefront of best practices, and oversight is a part of that. So we believe, that you can, it's not inconsistent to be fully supportive of our police officers and still agree that changes need to be made to the status quo in regards to community policing. And we listened to your concerns also. I believe it was either in August or the meeting before that where we looked over Article 17 and there was concerns about due process being taken out of Article 17. And so we have a counter proposal for you today on Article 17 that puts a lot of that back in there. We're not looking to take away due process, but we are looking for more transparency as that is the needs of our community. So working within the confines of 143, we understand that there needs to be various provisions of 143 to be negotiated via the contract. One of them being the G file. Additionally, for the chief to impose discipline under 143, it's 180 days. And I know there's some variations within our current contract, and the city's requesting 365 days. Additionally, anonymous complaints is already in the contract, and so we're not making any changes there. But we do feel that citizens should have mechanisms to review actions taken by the police and to comment to their leaders, and of course that's being done currently. We also feel that transparency will actually help our police officers as well, because that lack of information can create confusion and lead to unfair perception for the officers. Additionally, we believe this goes in line with, again, going back to the effective practices and the best practices of oversight, and the specific needs of our jurisdiction. So we are in the state of Texas. In the past legislative session, various things were passed. And we feel that we're trying to balance the desire and need to take care of our first responders, but also the desire for transparency and some reform, right? So quarantine leave, mental health leave, that was passed in the last session, but there was also changes to the hiring and TCOL requirements, and we made some changes in our contract in the hiring article to account for that. Specifically 143.089 used to end with letter G, now they've added letter H, and that actually gives us GFILE access to prospective employers. TCOL likewise has additional requirements in regards to reporting when you're doing the background investigations for those prospective applicants. There's also additional body-worn camera reporting requirements, restrictions on certain use of force, and required reporting on use of force. So chokeholds, right, are like now specifically forbidden. And if an officer sees somebody doing a chokehold, there's now reporting requirements for that officer to report that up. City of Austin, likewise, going back to the specific needs and the best fit for the jurisdiction in which we're in, right? Same thing. The City Council did pass item 91 to extend the benefits of the contract beyond the term of March, so through May. But also the desire, again, for transparency and reform. In 2020, the City Council passed its own resolution regarding chokeholds. And then again, more recently, we have the petition on oversight going to the voters in May 2023. So to kind of circle back to the APA presentation in terms of best practices, and tying it into some of this most recent research with Rice-Kinder and NAPL. So they propose an effective practice approach and encourage agencies to consider what is the best fit for the specific jurisdiction. what can be considered best is a function of the unique elements and needs of the community. And effective practices take into consideration the core values and principles of the community. Our community desires are specific to the city of Austin. Our community, as well as city leadership, seek to ensure transparency and to continue the tradition of innovative and robust civilian oversight. Again, I know that the city council meeting from last week, there was a lot of commentary and discussion there, so we don't know where we will end up in regards to this article. But we want to work with you, and we believe that we have the same interests, and we may differ on how we're going to get there, but we just think that we can work together to kind of meet the specific needs of the city of Austin in the specific jurisdiction and combine our research efforts. So our final thoughts end with the conclusion of that Rice-Kinder report. Oversight does not necessarily preclude a lack of faith in police. As research shows, better oversight institutions lead to increased civilian trust in the police and lower rates of assault against officers. And so effective civilian oversight will see the police not only as subjects of oversight, but co-participants. And so that's basically our message with you all today. I know we will have so much more discussion on Article 16 and the rest of the contract, but I appreciate your time. And if you have any questions.
So many.
Do you want us to do Article 17?
Sure.
Okay. Article 17, protected rights of officers. And again, we listened to y'all's comments the last time we discussed this article, and there was a lot of concern about due process being taken out. And so our assumption in proposing that the G file become public as opposed to remaining confidential would sort of resolve that, but we understood where you're coming from, so we put a lot of stuff back in. Section 2, definitions. This is still the same as what we proposed on March 30th of 2022. So I'm not going to re-go over that, other than that those definitions were taken from Article 16 and put into 17. Section 3, reference to 143 was taken out. That is also remains the same from our March 30th presentation. So Section 4, this is where we really wanted to focus on access to records by officers. In our original proposal on March 30th, this entire section was removed. Some subsections were replaced or put down in a different section of the same article, or put in Article 18. And after listening to y'all, we put it back. Okay, so subsection A is put back in. It got put into Article 18. Probably didn't make sense there, so we're putting it back here. Our change, however, as also proposed on March 30th, is that the 48 hours before the officer provides a statement is reduced to 24. What is new for today is subsection B. And so what we're trying to do here is meet the interests of our original proposal of the G file becoming public, but also continue to provide due process rights. We're not trying to take any of that away. So B says, if the officer has not previously received the following information as allowed by law and pursuant to the provisions of this contract, for instance, if they make a public information request, the officer shall be provided the following information within the following timelines. So the formatting has changed a little bit, but all this language in black is the same, which is in the current contract. So subsection 2, there are some changes here because reference to the G file is taken out. An officer is entitled to a copy of his or her statement to the Internal Affairs Division at the time when the statement is finalized and signed by the officer. The statement may remain confidential, subject to applicable federal and state law. Specifically referring to public information, right? Subsection 3 and 4 also remain the same.
Actually, that's a typo. This should also still include the APD policies.
Oh, yes.
So we'll clean that up before we get to
It should, yeah. APD policy and orders of non-communication about internal investigations. That actually should not be struck. Number 5, subsection 5, no changes there except just 48. It's got a hyphen between it now. Section 7, proven authority is included there. So we basically put section 4 back in there. The rest of the article has not changed from our last proposal on March 30th. If you look at subsection 5A, the change that we made for today is they instead of he or she. We also accepted in subsection B your proposal for sworn. Subsection 6 is also similar to our proposal for March 30th. The only change there is the effective date. It used to say October 1st, 2021, as you see it was struck through, depending on when the effective date will be, that's when the effective date will be there. So that's the only change from our first proposal for March. Going down the rest of the article, subsection 9, yes, if you go back up to section 6, the access to records provided in section 4 of this article has been granted in exchange for the following agreements intended to ensure confidentiality. You say ensure. Prevent retaliation for the threat of retaliation against any witness in an investigation. That was also previously struck, and we put that back in. Right. And then subsection A, information provided or made available for review remains confidential in the hands of the officer and or his representative pursuant to state and federal law as opposed to 143.19. Jumping down to section 9, we accepted the proposal for calendar days. And that's it for Article 17. I'm sure we'll have some discussion. We hope we've met some of your interests at least. And please let us know if you have any questions.
You'll send it to us when you get it cleaned up. Thank you. You want something for that?
I don't need that. Sponsor? You have some of the changes from the last year to HDMI.
Yeah.
Texted it.
Okay. This morning. And if the mic's up here, can you hear me? No. What about here?
It's not on.
How about here?
Yeah, that's better.
It helps if I turn it on. I'll move it back here. We'll just like it back here. When you come up, you're gonna have to raise it up.
What do you mean?
That was the screen.
What happens if you plug that whole thing in?
Well, it worked directly from that earlier, so I want to see if it's.
What Bernard does matter.
You want the dog.
No, this is at, Sweetberry Farm.
Oh, okay.
It looks like a green. This is the tunnel underneath the road. So you don't take them anywhere, so they can play in a call. They can set up, here, where we at, Dad? Just get out of that call. See if you can find a snake or a turtle. Run back and forth. Run back and forth. You get tired. We got some Kool-Aid in the corner, a bunch of sugar in it. We found it. Yeah. In the sport, you can tell them my way. That'll get you better. Is it working early?
It wasn't, we messed it up.
as contractor.
You had a virus in your computer that affected and shut down the system.
You can try the little,
I just tried the dongle too. Yeah. He said he's on his way. So I don't know if he did something. Oh, there you go. Yeah. We had it running. That's just unlocking quick.
If you look that up, I think that
That's called job security. So thank you.
Is that the correct one?
That is the correct one.
That's seven.
Thank you very much. All right, well, good morning. We'll go ahead and get started with a little delay. So I am Donald Baker, commander with the Austin Police Department, going on 34 years, almost 15 as a commander. Yeah, I'm a senior commander in there. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Austin Police staffing. The presentation, we're going to go over a little historic staffing, the population growth for Austin, our attrition versus recruiting, and our current state of APD staffing. Obviously, the mayor and council determine the staffing levels for APD. It's set through an ordinance every year. Historically, the city has increased or maintained the department's staffing as the city's population grew until 2020, when 150 sworn positions were eliminated and the cadet classes were canceled. The current ordinance that will go into effect on October 1, there's still 147 fewer police officers in the new budget as compared to 2019. This chart is a representation of our authorized staffing by ordinance versus our actual staffing. The ordinance are the orange, the teal is the actual, and that is based on some historical information we have from APA membership. So there's a variance right in there, except for 2022. That is actual APD staffing as of, I believe, on the 21st. And as you can see, our staffing levels are at that 2009, going towards trending to the 2008 levels. I want to give an illustration of the teal line is the city of Austin's total population growth for the city of Austin's demographics. And then the orange line is the Austin Police Department's historical staffing by authorized, staffing by ordinance. And that's not actual numbers, those are by the authorized numbers. You can see we were trending and then obviously went down. Rate of authorized officers per 1,000 population. So this is our per authorized officers. So once again, from the city's demographics studies, we were at over 2.0. For many years, we're at right around 2, and it's dropped. And if you actually look at our current staffing levels, we're down to about 1.61 and going lower. 22 authorized department staffing versus actual staffing on the 21st of this month. 1,809 versus the actual 1,542. When you break that down, it consists of 1,402 of current staffing, 127 that were on leave, 13 on long-term vacancy. Now, obviously, this fluctuates day by day, depending on how many that we have on leave. The long-term leave has been pretty consistent, but the current one will fluctuate, and then obviously our vacancy rate has been steadily increasing. Historically, this is a perspective of 2007. We were authorized 922 police officer, right? And our staffing on the 21st, we had 883. The Greater Austin Crime Commission did a study with some researchers from the University of New Haven and the Texas State, and their recommendation is we should have 882 patrol officer ranks for the staffing. in order to properly staff and patrol the city of Austin. We currently have 548. As you see in the data, this comes from the department staffing sheet that is kept up, maintained daily. The department had authorized at 773, with the 548, that's a 19.92% vacancy rate. This is a very interesting display of data. The orange are the ones that left APD, separated. The teal are those that joined. 2017, we had more that joined than left. After that, the trend has turned. We have more that left than are joining, and as you can see, in 2021, we didn't have anybody because we didn't have any cadet classes. These are the APD separations by type: retirement, resignation, termination, and death. You can see the historical trend now is going extremely high. When you look at 2017, you'll see that our contract was rejected by council in December 2017. We had 33 retirements in the month of December alone. When you look at the previous months, 7 was the high. I think that's significant as we move forward. This data is from the Austin Police Retirement System, and this just shows historical from their records what our retirements were. And as you can see, the trend continues to go up. Historical monthly attrition rate. Back then it was 3, 5, now we're sitting at 15 and continuing on. So I asked the retirement system, how many people are eligible for retirement March 31st, 2023? This is the numbers that we received. 192 can leave. That means they have at least 23 years or more. Another 148 have 20 or more and can do the permissive service credit. For 340 people that could be leaving employment on March 31st, 2023. So what I did is I did an assumption of saying, okay, if we have the 15 per month, let's work out the last quarter and see where we may end up. And once again, we'll have another historic level of people leaving the department for 2022. As you see, the resignations category keeps on growing also. So on the recruiting picture, the 146 modified cadet class, so let me correct that, is the TOPS class. I forget what the acronym for TOPS stands for, but the goal was to have 40 people come in. Recruitment went from coast to coast. We were able to attract 8 for a class, potentially 40. So I took the assumption of a cadet class with a 71% graduation ratio based on information I was receiving from the academy. And this is what it could look like where we only have 132 that would join and potentially 177 that would leave in 2022. The information before you here, this is from the department's staffing as of Monday, September 19th. You can see the vacancy rate there under the gray bar. The next one is the leave rate, and then your staffing rate is the darker. As you see, there is not a single patrol sector that has a staffing rate of 80% or greater. Now, when you combine those, if everybody came back from the leave rate, you have a couple that just go over the 80%. But we are seeing a continued decrease of those that are able to respond to calls for service. So how does this impact on our hot shots, our priority zeros? Those are the calls that involve physical harm or injury to a person or property and it's still in progress, and all parties are still on scene. You can see the trend. It went from 2016, just above 6 minutes, to now we're over 9 minutes. That same study where the University of New Haven Research looked at the data and information, they said the target goal of 6 minutes and 30 seconds for the hot shots. Robberies, burglaries, and shots fired calls show a better outcome when the response rate is less than 6 minutes and 12 seconds. Not the current rate of over 9. Urgent response times, those are priority ones. Those are involving physical harm or perceived threat to any person or property, and that just occurred and that our suspect may still be in the area, and where a quick response might aid in apprehension. You can see the trend line going up from just over 8, now we're over 12. Once again, the New Haven research determined that priority 1 target response should be 8 minutes and 30 seconds. So K-View wanted to know some information, so they asked the department, said, can you give us some of these response times? So they wanted a busy one, typically a Friday, and then let's look at a slower one. They thought Sunday slower. On Friday, July 15, there was 868 calls, the average response time, 37 minutes and 37 seconds. Sundays, which are typically slower for patrol officers, so they assume that the response times are quicker. 831 calls, the average response time, 31 minutes, 53. Well above the response times that the University of Haven recommends. So how does that all play with the city, the community, the business environment, and those? In 2017 and 2019, we were rated #1 by the U.S. News and World Report for best places to live. We dropped, and now in 2022, we dropped to number 13. And when you look at the different metrics that they said, that value, the affordability, yes, we all know about that, and also the quality of life. And I would suggest that a fully staffed, top-notch police department impacts on the quality of life. So once again, this is the state of our department right now. As you can see, the blue are the staffing rate. You have Frank and DTAC, they're above 76%. After that, it drops to 60.81%. So in summary, the Austin Police Department staffing levels are rapidly declining, while the city's population is continually increasing. Assistant Chief Jerry Bazan was quoted in a KD article that we are in a crisis right now. You can see we just went to where 465 non-patrol officers, detectives, and corporals are pulled from their specialized units, their investigative units, like homicide, robbery, aggravated assault, child abuse, and SWAT, to help fill those patrol vacancies. Motors and DWI units, park units, they were totally, the air quotes, suspended. Their functions went off to other areas. They're also, the city is paying double overtime to try to attract officers to come in and work those shifts so that they can try to achieve an 80% staffing level. We're not talking about 100%. They're trying to achieve an 80% in there. But I think what was a poignant part is when Chief Bazan said, we are still committed to bringing justice to you, to your loved ones and community. Those cases are still being worked, and we're trying to limit the effect that this patrol backfill will have on those units. We understand that your cases are important, but again, please have patience with us. What I would throw to this group as we're negotiating contracts is, I know there's victims out there that are calling 911 for help, and as we saw, 30 plus minutes, they don't have the luxury of having patience for when a crime is actually happening to them, when they are being victimized. So our current recruiting banner that's up on the police headquarters, when you look at that picture that's up there, 1/5, she resigned. She's already working for a different law enforcement agency. So we all have to recognize the significance and importance of the final work product of a mutually agreed upon contract and what it means for Austin, the future of APD. The retention of our officers, the professional staff, and recruiting our future officers is balanced on the outcome of these contract negotiations. I think working together, we can achieve more, just like our recruiting slogan says. But it has to be together that we enhance public safety and the quality of life in Austin. And with that, I conclude.
Don, will you go back to the slide that has vacancies by sector?
You want that one or you want the one?
No, that one right there.
Okay.
I know folks don't like to talk about it, but I think it's important that we also recognize that these are vacancies that don't include the 150 patrol officer positions that we've cut as a city. So it's just important to keep that in perspective, I think.
No other questions for me? Travis, I will give you the podium.
Do you want to just keep your computer up there so I can just log in and straighten it out?
Sure.
And we'll get a copy.
As long as you don't have any viruses that the city had on the computer.
Donald, you'll send them a copy.
I will.
Morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes. So I'm up here again to talk about Article 7, based on the city's response to my original offer, just giving another response and counter to your offer. I'm going to make some comments and have discussions based on the wages proposal made by the city and the financial study that was done by the PMF Consulting Group. With being the highest paid police department in Texas is not currently attracting applicants, how is closing the financial gap supposed to help us attract applicants? If what you're paying does not fill the vacancies, how would paying less than the cost of living improve the situation that the department is currently in? Other departments are closing the gap in our pay structure in a time when we need to stand out financially more than we ever have historically. This is a nationwide challenge to staff our department to meet all the requirements to be a police officer in the city of Austin. Everyone is offering very good arrangements to come to their departments. Everyone is offering very good arrangements to come to their departments across Texas and this country. The city has limited their study to just the 8 major metro regions of Texas because historically that's how it's always been done. Due to the current challenging times of policing, other cities outside of Texas are offering not only higher sign-on bonuses than Austin, but also relocation expenses and housing stipends, which make the move out of Texas much easier and more appetizing for people who are currently looking to leave. We must maintain our competitiveness. According to the PMF study, it states that Austin's longevity pay formula is competitive with the 8 Texas cities surveyed. The study was very generic in producing its data, and I believe it failed to show an accurate comparison of the monetary value of each city's longevity pay as they are measured in different ways. I converted the study's language into actual dollar amounts to better gauge the difference in longevity pay for the top cities of the PMF study. Over the course of a 30-year career, the total compensation for longevity pay for a San Antonio officer is $87,590. In Corpus, the total is $81,000. And Arlington is ranked third with $49,425 over a 30-year career. For Arlington, this is just the rank of officer, and as you promote, the multiplier for your longevity will increase, resulting in an even higher amount. Austin is ranked fourth with a total of $48,150 over a 30-year period. In a time when we need to be standing out financially from other police departments, I find it hard to say that we have a competitive longevity pay when we are behind the number one rank by $39,440 and behind the number two rank by $32,850. Austin is in the middle of the pack and ranked at number 4 with a total of $48,150. Our original proposal for longevity pay, which would increase our $107 amount to $200, would make Austin the number one rank amongst the study, and our new total would equal out to $90,000 over the course of a 30-year career. We believe that this is a simple adjustment that can help us be a more competitive police department when it comes to recruiting, and it also will help prevent eligible officers from retiring, as they will see a significant change in their longevity payment due to their higher years of service. Moving on to shift differential, it is important to point out that Arlington, Dallas, El Paso, and Fort Worth all have their shift differentials set up as a percentage and not a fixed rate, which is what the Austin Police Association originally proposed. Arlington is offering 6% of an officer's base rate. If you are a 5-year officer in Arlington, your shift differential will come out to about $434 per month, which is more than what Austin is offering at $300 per month. Dallas offers 3.5% evening shifts and 6.5% for night shifts. Their night shift stipend outdoes Austin's shift differential as well. A 5-year officer working night shift in Dallas will receive about $405 a month, but while in Austin, we don't have a night shift stipend, so the officer would just receive the standard $300 amount. This number will continue to go up each year for Dallas employees as long as they receive an annual raise, while in the Austin, that $300 will remain the same and decrease in value with inflation. Fort Worth is similar in nature, as they also offer 6%, which for a 5-year officer would equal about $387 a month, which is more than the Austin Police offering. San Antonio is offering a flat rate of $350, which again is more than Austin. So in summary, San Antonio, Arlington, Fort Worth, and Dallas are all offering better shift differentials than Austin is. Based on this information, Austin is ranked 5th out of 8 in the PMF study. Moving on to education, Austin is currently offering $1,200 if you have 60 college credits, $2,640 if you have a bachelor's degree, and $3,600 for a master's degree per year. Looking at the PMF study and going to each department's website, the breakdown is as follows. Fort Worth is offering $2,880 per year for a bachelor's degree, which is $240 more than Austin. Dallas is offering $3,600 for a bachelor's degree per year, which is $960 more than Austin. Houston is offering $3,640 per year for a bachelor's degree, which is $1,000 more than Austin. And San Antonio takes the number 1 spot and is offering $3,780 per year for a bachelor's degree, which is $1,140 more than Austin per year.
Could I ask a quick question on this? Is this from the offer we made or from the current contract? I'm just trying to figure out.
This is current.
So not from what's on the table, but the current contract versus the PMF study?
Yes, you didn't change anything with the education with your offer. You just increased the FTO pay by $50.
No, I meant the whole presentation, each of these.
Oh, yeah, everything is current.
Okay.
Not including your offer.
Okay, just checking.
Again, I would like to reference that in 2015, President Obama's task force on 21st century policing, higher education was found to be one of the 6 ways to reduce crime and build better relationships between police and the communities they serve. Other Texas cities are paying their police officers with college education much more than Austin, and based on the city's PMS study, we are ranked 5th out of 8. It is also important to point out that some police departments receive education pay and certificate pay, while in Austin we only receive one or the other. Ranking 5th out of 8 is not suitable for today's climate in policing when every police department in the country is struggling to staff their departments. Amongst the field training officer data, Austin was ranked almost in dead last, coming in 7th out of 8. Fort Worth is the leader as a 5-year FTO will make an additional $7,756 per year, while an Austin FTO will make $2,100 per year. Even with the city's current offer of adding an additional $50 per month, Austin will still be in the rank of 7 out of 8 based on the PMF study. Field training officers are the ones who take a fresh new mind and show them how to integrate their academy knowledge into real-life situations. This is an extremely important function for a successful and safe police department. One of the issues APD is facing right now is that officers do not want to be field training officers. It is a huge increase in stress and liability on the officer. Significantly increasing the stipend for field training officers should entice more officers to apply to the program and help build the future leaders of the Austin Police Department. So looking at what other cities are doing to recruit and retain around the U.S., New Orleans recently signed a 3-year contract costing $80 million, and they're paying new recruits a sign-on bonus of $20,000, and then giving a $10,000 bonus to employees after having 3 years of service. They're also getting a 5% raise in year 2024 and 2025, and a $5,000 pay increase every 5 years in addition to those percent raises. They're also offering free health insurance until the end of 2025, and are instituting a new take-home car program for their officers there. Other Texas cities are closing the wage gap on our financial system here. Arlington Police negotiated the largest single-year pay raise in the city's history at 8% for fiscal year 2023. A 6-year officer in Arlington with that raise will make $93,885. A 6-year officer in Austin would need an 11% raise to match that number at that year of service for fiscal year 2023. Lubbock Police signed a 16% increase over 1 year. Houston just signed 10% over 3 years. San Antonio just signed 17.5% over 5 years. Other departments in the country, Seattle is offering a $30,000 lateral sign-on bonus, $7,500 for new recruits. DC is offering a $20,000 sign-on bonus with a $6,500 housing benefit. Tampa's just signed for an 18.5% raise over 3 years. Hawaii just signed for 20% over 4 years, and Orlando is currently negotiating for 15% over 3 years. And I believe the city just countered them at 13%, but they're holding strong for 15%. This scale, the top scale is Dallas Transit Police salaries. The middle scale is the Plano Police Department, and then the bottom scale is the Austin Police Department. The Dallas Transit Police makes more money than the Austin Police Department every single year from base to year 20. There is not 1 year where the Austin Police Department is paid more than them. The Plano Police Department also outdoes the Austin Police Department salary every single year starting from base to 20 years. A 5-year officer for Dallas Transit makes $93,806, while a 5-year officer in Austin makes $77,900. That is almost a $16,000 difference per year, not to mention the housing in Dallas is cheaper than it is in Austin. A 5-year officer in Plano makes $100,402 a year, while again, Austin makes $77,900. That is a difference of $22,500 a year. This billboard may look familiar as it's seen hanging over I-35 in Austin, trying to recruit Austin police officers to the Spokane County Sheriff's Office. The sheriff stated, we do really support our law enforcement here, and it's basically of putting money where your mouth is. We're willing to pay to get the best and the brightest from around the United States to come work for us. Even though the Austin billboard is so new, the sheriff claims his office has already received calls from local officers inquiring about the deputy jobs in Spokane County. Moving on to the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve made history on Wednesday, approving a third consecutive 0.75 basis point hike in an aggressive move to tackle the white-hot inflation that's been plaguing the U.S. economy. Wednesday's decision marks the Fed's toughest policy move since the 1980s to fight inflation. It will also likely cause economic pain for millions of American businesses and households by pushing up the cost of borrowing for things like homes, cars, and credit cards. Since the last time I talked about wages, the inflation rate has continued to linger at an alarmingly high rate. If the inflation rate for the rest of the year is 0 for the remaining months, the average inflation rate for the year is still going to be 5.5% for 2022. Based on statements made by the city of Austin during their first wage proposal, they stated that everyone is losing ground on whether or not their paycheck is enough for what they used to buy. Just like your members are experiencing challenges about whether or not they can pay their bills, whether or not they can acquire or maintain housing, that very same set of challenges affects the city as well, because the city is having to pay the same higher prices that is driven by inflation. The city is experiencing the same kind of costs. With that being said, recently the city of Austin has decided to give all non-sworn employees a 4% raise for this upcoming fiscal year. Raise minimum wage 25% from $15 to $20, and then finally give city council members a 40% raise. With all that being said, the Austin Police Association believes that for our year one raise, it should be at the very least 5%, given the current staffing levels and the amount of stress put on an officer in today's climate. We still believe that our 5% per year ask is a reasonable and fair offer. And this chart comes from City Council. City Council proposed an ordinance that the city manager, as part of contract negotiations, is directed to develop the ATX Public Safety Vacancy Staffing Plan. The study shows that the police department has identified the greatest need in order to reduce the existing vacancies, as well as make progress toward the projected goal staffing level. Based on their statistical analysis of historical graduation rates, an increase in recruiting and training capacity by 75% is required in year 24 to sufficiently reduce the vacancy rate to begin increasing sworn staff size based on the projected new positions. Given projected reductions in attrition, the primary challenge facing APD related to sworn staffing is the limited number of new officers that can be trained at the academy on a yearly basis. Several factors contribute to the lack of capacity, including inadequate training space, insufficient training staff, and insufficient curriculum staff as outlined in previous sections. APD's current recruiting and training capacity should be estimated at approximately 122 cadets per year with an average completion rate of 71%. This suggests an estimated onboarding of 87 new officers per year at current capacity. Given current sworn vacancies and projected attrition, this capacity is inadequate to successfully overcome the vacancy issue by 2027. This figure presents the projected 5-year vacancy rates under the assumed rates of attrition and successful training of new cadets based on the currently authorized staffing. I think it is important to note the specific ask that we have in front of us that has not been done historically from the APA. When calculating the total cost of a police contract, the unfilled vacancies in the department are included in that total with the belief that these vacancies will be filled during the time of the contract, and therefore should be included in the total estimated cost. Due to our current historic staffing shortages, we do not believe that it would be fair at this time to incorporate the unfilled positions in the calculation, as there is a high chance that they will still not be filled 4 years from now. This study clearly shows that unless the academy is increased by 75%, our staffing situation will be worse in 2027 than it is right now. A 75% expansion of the academy is going to take years to accomplish and will go well beyond our next 4-year contract. Therefore, including the unfilled vacancies in this current contract would not be financially accurate. Our wages offer today is the same offer we presented originally, including the stipend change that were originally proposed. We ask that the city looks at our proposal and works with us on making a contract that we can both agree on for our members and the people of Austin. Policing may be a calling, but more cops But most cops are not volunteers with lucrative day jobs. Having bills to pay and families to support does not negate a sense of mission or mean that officers who want decent compensation are greedy. It means they're normal humans with a sense of responsibility for their families and personal obligations as well as their communities. Wanting to be able to pay off your debts, build up savings, and provide for a child's education is responsible, not mercenary. Wanting to rent or buy a house in a safe neighborhood is sensible, not pretentious. Policing in today's times falls under the category of jobs that are unpleasant, that require higher skill levels, or that are dangerous, require higher levels of pay to attract enough people to do the jobs. Officers in lower paying localities with marginal benefits and variable leadership can read headlines announcing Target's new starting pay and wonder if they are making a wise choice. Or when Walmart raises starting pay for truck drivers to $110,000 per year. It's easy to see how a job requiring a gun, a Kevlar vest, and the possibility of getting prosecuted for a mistake might seem less attractive than it used to be. I look forward to our ongoing conversations with the city. Thank you. Quarterback.
So that's all we have for right now. Did you want to caucus for a bit, or do you have something else?
We'll lay out one deal and then try to send it to you. Not a hard copy.
Okay.
Pull it up. Sorry, you got it? Yeah, I've got it here. I'm just going through making sure I got it. About there. You don't have to. Would you check to see if I don't know if it leaves here if you got it? You should get it. That's the merged draft. It's kind of where we were. I don't have your 17 in there yet, because I don't have it. I don't have your 17 and I'll add that, but as of today, and then we have some adjustments in our proposal for Article 19 assignment changes, and I'll let Tom slay that up.
So we had previously laid 19, changes to 19 out on the table. If you guys and gals remember, the biggest kind of two changes that we wanted to see was a change in how we post vacancies. That language remains the same. And then we pulled out some language that talked about the filling of vacancies. There was some language that we thought we needed in there internally within the department. That's been kind of squared away. We feel good about where we're at there. Thank you, JJ, for your work on that. So we pulled that stuff out. And you guys had some pushback on the special events in section 5. We tried to add a definition in there that would kind of encompass special events. And again, the important thing here, from our perspective is, what we're really talking about in this section is what happens if you are told by the department, I'm gonna change your hours to go work these special events because we don't have the capacity to hire overtime on a volunteer basis to fill these spots. So we've only seen it happen one time, the very first F1 event. We failed to give people 28 days notice, and so what this provision of the contract does is says, in the event the department has to change people's hours and days of work to cover these things on duty, and we're unable as a department to give people 28 days notice, then in those situations, those officers would get this benefit of 20 hours of admin time. So we were asked, hey, we were told we don't like this broad definition, please give us a list. So we give them a list. So it's got the original 6 of Mardi Gras, South by Southwest, Texas Relays, Halloween, F1, New Year's Eve, and then we have added the Pride Festival, the Reggae Festival. It says Ice's birthday, but I think it's Eeyore's birthday. Eeyore's birthday. The Austin Marathon, the Cap 10K, Pecan Street Festival, both spring and fall, Austin City Limits Music Festival, the Kite Festival, Captex Tri, Art City Austin, Bat Fest, the Film Festival, Water Creek Show, Juneteenth Parade, and other events, Austin FC events, events at the Moody Event Center, events at the Moody Amphitheater at Waterloo Park, the PGA Tour, Trail of Lights, those events associated with UT football, Silver, relays, turkey trot, 4th of July events, the Littleton 5K, 10K challenge, and then the Texas Tribute Festival. So, just again, a list of events that we know of. I'll tell you guys that I would feel more comfortable having just a definition that we can agree to, because we don't know what events are coming, right? We don't know what events are going to be here in 3-4 years that we may or may not be able to staff on a volunteer basis. But if that is not a possibility, give me a list of events to at least try to have a conversation on. And again, this is these listed events are the only events where you're in situations where an officer basically can get the benefit of 20 hours admin time if the department fails to give them a 28-day notice. If you give an officer 28-day notice and you change someone's schedule, then you change their schedule. There's no benefit to the officer beyond just the regular pay notice. Any questions on that?
I got a question. We'll take a closer look at it and we'll let you know.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
We just added a bunch of events. And then, yeah, the other stuff on there is the same proposals that we had added previously. Okay.
Just want break for lunch.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, then let us know.
We're also gonna send you Article 17 and we'll send you our PowerPoint.
All right, thank you.
What?
How are you? I know it.
Busy, busy.
That's how I took it.
I don't know about this beard. I don't know about it.
Of course, yeah. Seems like it's gonna come back.
Once the pay charts started going up, it was like, okay, see the best titles in.
Great, well, yeah, we might grab it like two.
I've got you.
Name and everything, so.
And that's
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Thank you.
This, special event, deal. I'm not sure. After I shot one for some shit. It's requiring like ICS paperwork and have fracture ways. So on whatever she, it's like, it's like, this is social. And she put net. So she's saying, and so the two subsections of that is, are you gonna do this ICS? But it looks like it will require ICS paperwork.
Yes.
Just know if I can go. I'm not wasting her time.
So Chris?
Yeah, no, I do that. Yeah, I'll pay everybody today. You saw it, right?
We're gonna do a principal Yeah, I would like to know that too.
So we don't know if the company.
Yeah, usually it's a little bit of that. Yeah, they let it go, so we don't find out. I was actually going to see if grab a flight or a couple. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, we can do that. Oh, Universal, yes.
Oh, near that.
This was right there. Oh, yeah, we're right across the street from it. We go over the East Niagara, all that stuff.
Well, the first time it was.
This is across the street from over there.
Let's go there.
That our, go across the street.
We're ready whenever.
All right, we had a little conversation about the elephant in the room. And I guess I want to know whether the city is going to negotiate over oversight. And we've given you a comprehensive proposal, which we spent months working on. We tried to cover transparency, accountability. We've listened to looked at all the studies, and we gave you something that should be negotiable. But if the city's position is you're not going to bargain over it, well, then we need to know that up front so we don't waste time coming here and trying to get a deal on oversight in the contract. The police are stakeholders in this discussion. The city's position currently is we want you to concede things in 143, have no voice in the oversight process, and that we'll just take care of it outside of the contract. That's where you're at right now. But we've had a history here going back to when Kirk Watson was the mayor the first time of bargaining over it. And we have bargained over it. And we bargained over it every time. You take what was in the 1990s and whenever it came in and look at it today, it's totally different. When the city brought issues, monitor, oversight, while we might have disagreed around the edges, we reached a deal. And so we are prepared to do that. And we're prepared, along with what the pay should be the major issues in driving these negotiations. So I guess I'm trying to determine what is it? What is the position of the city? It sounds like today that you just want to wait and let the election happen in May of 23, and that will be the determining issue. So we can tell you we're all in or we're all out. We're not going to come in and take Article 17 and negotiate 143 changes. So your position that it's not going to be in this agreement, then it's not going to be in this agreement, and that includes 143 changes. So I guess I'm asking you, what is it that how do you see this going forward? And because if you're here to bargain over it, we're here to bargain over it, and we're serious about it. So the ball is in your court, and other than that, we're just dancing around here waiting for May, and we're not waiting for May. We're here today.
Yeah, and I apologize if I didn't make it clear in my presentation earlier. As you said, I don't know what oversight will look like. I don't know where we. Oh gosh. That should be okay. I just turned off. Here, I'm gonna give this one to Bernard. I'm gonna take that one. Bottom line, we are here to negotiate, right? So I don't know what oversight will look like. And maybe I didn't stress this enough, but we wanted to just kind of go back to March of 2022, earlier this year, when we originally presented our proposal. So I know you have questions, what will OPO look like if you do take it out of the contract? We understand that. But I guess the purpose of today was that it seems like we're on the same page with certain things, right? Your presentation, your proposal on Article 16, it did touch on transparency. It did touch on oversight, not more than touch on it, right? So we are here to negotiate. What the final outcome will look like, obviously that's going to be a conversation that we will all have together as we kind of move through this. But to answer your question, long story short, we are here to continue to negotiate. We're not waiting for the May election. We would like to have a contract prior to that. And even in the event that the voters do pass that petition language does say that if a contract does come in place, that contract will be in place for the term of that contract, regardless of what the voters do. So,
No, I can just say, obviously, you all watched the city council meeting as we did. And we will see where they go with it at the end of the day. Where we are is at the table to negotiate with you over 16, 17, 18, 20, all of those issues. And although there may be less options at the end of the day than there were beforehand, as of today, we wanted to re-explain from the Rice Tender report after going through all of your research and seeing that it was, kind of 20 years ago, we wanted to look at today's research and look at best practices today and tell you where we were coming from originally. That doesn't mean we're not going to move from where we are or that we are going to move from where we are, but we wanted to let you know where that came from because your presentation was so much different than where we had originally been coming from. So we wanted to make sure that you understood that. Now, secondarily, I will apologize for the cancellations over the past month. That was totally the fault of LRO. We had our equipment stolen, as I think you're aware, and then I got COVID. So it was just one of those things where, the depth of our staff right now didn't allow us to continue without me at that point. So that's kind of a delay in where some of this was. We were going to present this to you at the first meeting, same conceptual presentation, nothing to do with what happened at City Council the other night. When that happened, of course, that's gonna, lead to other end results, possibly not. It really depends, but we are still here to negotiate that portion of the contract.
I guess I appreciate it. Well, it doesn't work. That's all right. I appreciate that. So am I to assume at the next meeting you're prepared to work through our proposal on Article 16 to see what we can reach agreement on? Because I didn't hear that. All I heard today was, we don't want it in the contract, here's where we want it in 17. I understand that's your possession, but I want to know that we can start negotiating over Article 16. It is our position that it will be in the contract. What it looks like, we don't know yet, but our intent is to bargain oversight and the monitor into the contract. And if we have a deal by March and the council and the members approve it, then that'll be the deal.
So I guess I would ask in return, is you're not willing to negotiate it out of the contract under any circumstances?
Well, there's a number.
Well, that's my question. Is that a negotiable concept? What you're not accepting our proposal, understood. And we're not accepting yours at this point either. But my question is, we have not put a firm line in the sand, and I'm just asking, it sounded like you have.
Well, let's just say that it is our intent to negotiate it into the contract. Nobody knows until we get down to the end. And then I guess we'll have to make choices, and so will the city. It's our belief that this is the best place for it. It makes the police be stakeholders. It makes them participate in the process. It involves the elected officials. and that this is the best place to try to get a deal. That's gonna be our position. Now, if it's negotiable, it's negotiable. And I don't know the end, but it's not our intent at this point. We came to bargain. Otherwise, we'd have just said, take it out and we'll let the cards play. We didn't. So I think our position is that we bargained from that. We have no intent today to piecemeal it over in 17. I think we've made clear that we haven't seen any reason articulated to change 17 or 18. 24 hours, 48 hours, 180, those are just numbers. And of course, it's open to discussion, but a lot of that is just window dressing. It doesn't really change anything. So, well, I guess I've said it. We'll be here next time, and we want to work through 16, and we hope the city will participate in that.
Yeah, and so I would say, it is our strong belief that OPO belongs outside of the contract under best practices, and that's why we wanted to give you our summation of the Rice-Kinder report and their utilization of the NACO 13 principles. And so that's where we were coming from today, is to make sure that you understood why and where we were coming from, and that the autonomy of the investigation, additionally outside of the police department, is important to us from a negotiation standpoint.
And I understand. And we throw a lot of terms around, but if you look at the National Committee on Police Oversight and Law Enforcement, according to them, there's less, they say more than 200, their last report is 160 departments in the United States have some form of oversight, very little to Oakland, I guess, somewhere in Austin's in there. So less than 1% of all the police departments in America meet any of their standards. So 17,800 departments don't have any of this. So we're not trying to back into that category. We already know that what you have in Austin far exceeds what 90% of the American public has. It far exceeds. Putting Dallas, Fort Worth, El Paso, that's just silliness. They don't have oversight anywhere near you. That's why I said, you got a Yugo and I got a Ferrari. You got the Ferrari. And we're prepared to keep that Ferrari and work on it. But if you, what Houston has is not even in the contract. San Antonio, they don't have any outside oversight. Fort Worth never even came up at the table. I just did Dallas, it wasn't even mentioned. So we're not trying to back up and say we're out, we want to go down to what someone else. We're prepared to deal with the real world in this city, and we're prepared to bargain over it. And we believe that we can get a deal that'll work for most people. There'll always be someone with a different opinion, but most people. So I'll accept that as you'll be prepared next week. And I think there are a lot of other issues we'd like to sit around that we've got some general ideas. We'd like to try to get some of that stuff off the table if we can.
Same.
All right.
Same.
Anything?
We can tell you what we can have ready for next week,
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
which would be Article 11, 18, 19, and 20. So that's ABL, discipline, and grievance procedures. And also 19 that you just presented. You should be able to work with that very well.
And is this the same language you had before?
What do you-
You've already got proposals on the table for 17, 18, and 20.
Y'all gave us a counter proposal on 20.
Yeah.
We have not provided you a
Okay.
response yet to that.
Okay.
So same with 18 and 19 we just got today, and I have in our records that 11 is still in our court. So that's ABL.
Did you want to say something? Good.
It's more of a housekeeping issue. I think we're still trying to determine whether or not our officer's funeral is gonna be next week on Monday. So, I mean, I think it's gonna be an issue if we have a funeral on Monday.
Okay, let us know, we'll talk about it.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, that's,
I don't think it's been determined yet whether or not we're gonna have two ceremonies, so we're trying to solidify.
Right, and so, yeah, there's not been a determination, but I know that from,
If it's on Monday, we will have to cancel.
understood.
But we have other dates.
We do. Do you know or anticipate kind of when you guys will be ready to talk about 16 again?
Other than the third, I actually don't have any other dates that are readily available for me at the moment, so I'll have to get with the team, confirm.
I don't think that's what he's asking.
No, I know.
Did we set the 19th?
We have a for the 19th.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that was October.
Okay.
I know we had discussed, so we had the 3rd and the 19th as tentative. Do you want to try to pick some dates for October? I know you gave us November 1st.
Our problem actually is more with the availability of locations,
Okay,
so I'll have to get dates to.
get with Thomas and then you can coordinate. I'm pretty open. I'm down to just Austin, so Dallas is voting. Who knows? So yeah, we'll get some dates for October and November. I know we're coming up on the holidays, it starts getting more difficult, but,
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but one of the things that you said on, and it's on your presentation, and I wrote it down real quick. It said the city of Austin has been progressive and is at the forefront of best practices, and oversight is a part of those best practices. And I'll just say that it's a firm belief by the leaders on this side of the table and our members, right? Like, we didn't get there by accident, right? We didn't get there not engaging in the process. And so, I know what other cities have because I deal with their union leadership from across America. And I know that the men and women of our police department, they buy into it, right? Like it's a thing that the vast majority of our police department, they know nothing different, right? The number of people that were here before oversight is very, very, very small. It's just a part of the way of the world. And so I'm eager for us to start digging into it if it's something that we can dig into and figure out. Like, I recognize we're $90 million off on between our financial proposal and y'all's financial proposal, right? But I also know that until we start talking about money, we're never gonna set those limits and then work to the middle and figure out like what is an appropriate pay package. I know the exact same thing is true for Article 16. Like, I know the things that we can have conversations with, and I have a general idea of the things that we could have conversations with our membership and vote to ratify. But I also know that if we're pretty far apart, like it's gonna take time, and the time is now. I mean, our contract expires in less than a week, and we're gonna enter into an evergreen, and we've got 6 months to wrap this thing up. We've gotta start moving to the middle and figuring out like what is this like. I feel like I've said this a million times. I told the mayor again last week when I met with him, like, the city is better off when we're under contract, the police department is better off when we're under contract, the association in a very selfish way is better off when we're under contract, and our members are better off when we're under contract. So I don't want us to fall out of contract, but I know that we have heavy lifting to do, and I hope that we can start pushing it.
I think we agree with that for sure.
all right. We adjourned. Thank you for your time.
Thomas, would you look at that stuff for Wednesday?
I saw that sheet.
See Melanie.
You too.
Stay away from that Rona. Stay away from her. She's just a walking sick person.
We've been plagued, our team has been.
Oh, my son got it, my wife got it, I got it, and we went home.
Really?
We've had all 4 shots.
That pushed me out.
We thought, man, we
good.
skated.
Yeah.
And then my son got it, I got it. And I just went so broke. But that's everybody.
I've
And I said, I'm gonna go
got
somewhere
that
kid.
like,
So we bought it. Yes.
I've got that stigma on me now.
But they
Silver
did-
lining, you didn't get the OG coupon.
I didn't get to work with it.
Yeah, we're talking.
Tom, thank you so much.
Yeah, that's not my first question. Yeah, so,
Bye, Anthony. Bye, Tom.
right, okay, she said,
Oh, bye, Beverly.
yeah, so I.